Meta AI is the personal AI that's tailored to you, now with its very own app. It's built to get to know you, offering helpful answers and inspiration. Looking for something to add to your bucket list? Meta AI goes beyond traveling the world. It remembers you're a basketball fanatic and suggests you attend one of the playoff games. Just start typing or speaking to get the answers you need, wherever and whenever, because Meta AI is your personal AI. Download the Meta AI app, now available on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Friday, June 13th. Oh, wait a minute. It's Friday the 13th. No wonder all that stuff's been happening to me this morning. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Clouds this morning. Showers possible this afternoon. High 78. And then it's not a great weekend again. Saturday, going to see some steady rain through most of the day. The high 65. And then Sunday, no rain, but just clouds. High 66. If you're walking out the door with us right now, 66 and cloudy in Nyack up in Rockland County. 69 and cloudy in West Windsor over in New Jersey. And it's 71 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
Israel and Iran trade attacks overnight. It was a slugfest at the Democratic mayoral debate. A wild night at an ICE detention center in Newark. Some students in Brooklyn say they have an abusive teacher. And a Brooklyn family trying to get a will annulled. All right, let's get into it at 5:01. Israel launching airstrikes inside Iran late yesterday in its latest efforts to destroy Tehran's nuclear program. An operation military leaders in Israel say they had no choice but to carry out. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Operation Rising Lion targeted several sites across the Iranian capital to dismantle the country's nuclear infrastructure, ballistic missile factories, and military. And it's to roll back what the Prime Minister says is Iran's threat to Israel's very survival. He took to his TV in Israel last night to tell his fellow citizens about what had taken place. And then he spoke in English for the rest of the world.
For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction.
So Netanyahu addressing the nation after Israel launched what it called that preemptive offensive against military and nuclear sites in Iran. There are reports that the commander-in-chief of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards was killed in the attack. Iranian state TV reports General Hossein Salami was killed in an overnight strike along with another IRGC general and multiple nuclear scientists.
They backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs.
Yeah, so a recent report that Iran had enriched enough uranium to build nuclear bombs within days was the reason apparently this attack took place last night. Iran sent more than 100 drones into the Jewish state. Here's the head of the Israeli military last night.
We have no choice. We are operating against an imminent and existential threat. We cannot allow the Iranian regime to obtain a nuclear weapon that would be a danger to Israel and the entire world.
So there was a state of emergency declared in Israel overnight, people taking to their shelters. No word of any damage so far. President Trump confirming the U.S. was pulling some staffers yesterday from the Mideast amid these rising tensions and, signaling this was going to happen sooner than later. And sure enough, it did.
The IDF began preemptive and precise strikes targeting the Iranian nuclear program in order to prevent the Iranian regime's ability to build a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, so here was the president yesterday.
Well, I don't want to say imminent, but it looks like it's something that could very well happen. Look, it's very simple, not complicated. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
And after these attacks last night, he convened his cabinet members for a quick meeting about that military action. 5:04. Let's bring it back home. On a contentious debate stage last night, 7 of the 11 candidates running for mayor here in New York City did not agree on much, but they did agree that whoever wins City Hall needs to be able to take on President Trump. Here was Andrew Cuomo last night.
He sent troops into cities all across this country, but he never sent them into New York when I was there, and he never will when I am mayor. Donald Trump only picks fights that he can win. He cannot win a fight with me.
With polls showing the surging Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani closing in, the gloves were totally off last night. Cuomo wanted to hammer home his experience and the lack on the part of Mamdani.
He's never dealt with the city council. He's never dealt with the Congress. He's never dealt with the state legislature. He's never negotiated with a union. He's never built anything.
But Mamdani fired back with what might have been the moment of the night.
I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records, and I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, the name is Mamdani, Mamdani. You should learn how to say it.
Yeah, that might be the moment that'll be remembered most last night. The topic of the debate also turned to the candidates' views on Israel.
I'm not Mr. Mamdani. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm not divisive. I didn't say I would boycott Israel. We should be selling unity, not the division that this man is spreading.
The reason he doesn't have a message for Muslim New Yorkers is because he has nothing to say to us.
Now, if elected, Cuomo would be the oldest mayor at 67 years old next year. Mamdani would be the youngest at 34. The campaign has effectively turned into this two-person race, but there were 7 candidates on stage, everybody trying to get their punch in at Cuomo, the leader in all the polls.
You've never taken responsibility for one single thing you've done wrong in your entire life. Not one single thing. You should try it sometime.
That was Brad Lander last night. And one of the things they tried to hammer Mamdani for was they said he would defund the police if he becomes the mayor. Here's what he had to say about that.
You've never taken responsibility for one single thing you've done wrong in your...
No, that's clearly something else. But there were some issues where all the candidates agreed. No one thinks closing Rikers Island by 2027 is possible. All of them supported an expansion on red light cameras and street vendors. WABC News Time 509. President Trump talking about the India airplane crash in India yesterday, calling it horrific.
The plane crash was terrible. I've already told them anything we can do. It's a big country, a strong country. They'll handle it, I'm sure. But I let them know that anything we can do, we'll be over there immediately.
The Boeing 787-8 Dreamliner was bound for London, 242 passengers, about the time we were coming on the air when it crashed, yesterday, I should say, near the airport during takeoff. Trump said it looked like the engines lost power. Now, a team of NTSB investigators here are on their way, or probably already in India, to help with the investigation.
It was a horrific crash. It looks like most are gone. They actually maybe have a couple survivors, which is just heard. But that was a horrible crash. I gave him a couple of pointers. I said, maybe you'll look at this or that. You know, we saw the plane. It looked like it was flying pretty well. It didn't look like there was an explosion. It just looked like the engines maybe lost power. But, boy, that is a terrible crash. It's one of the worst in aviation history.
Yeah, I mean, what made the crash even worse was it crashed into a college where people were training to be doctors. 5 people in the dining hall who happened to be there at the time, they were killed. The Indian officials, lots of them speaking out yesterday, saying they've already begun their investigation.
We are going to do a fair and thorough investigation. We are not going to spare anyone. We are not going to leave any stone unturned.
And as the president alluded to, there was a survivor. Maybe there was more than one, but the one we know about, one passenger surviving after this plane crash in India. He spoke with a local media outlet in India saying that there were bodies all around him when he got up and ran from the plane before someone grabbed him to put him in an ambulance. They say he was disoriented a good part of the day, but they say he's doing okay this morning. And then, of course, the business side of all this 787 is a Boeing Boeing plane. Boeing shares falling sharply after this crash. Mitch McCann, correspondent, has more.
The crash is of particular concern for Boeing, not just because of the tragic circumstances, but also because it involved the Dreamliner. It marks the first crash involving that model. Previous incidents have involved the 737 MAX jetliners.
Shares of the company that make parts for Boeing 787 Dreamliner, they also fell yesterday. Boeing says that it's been in contact with officials with Air India, and they stand ready to support them.
Shares in companies that make Dreamliner parts also fell, including engine maker GE Aerospace, which was down 3%. Shares of Spirit Aerosystems Holdings, which Boeing is in the process of acquiring, also dropped 3%.
Yeah, just all around, of course, a horrific day in India. And, of course, as more information on that investigation comes into us, we'll pass them on to you. At this point, they're not clear what took place yesterday. 5:12, let's bring it back home. There was an issue with a JetBlue flight that rolled into the grass after landing at Boston Logan International Airport yesterday afternoon.
Just before noon, a plane from Chicago touched down at Logan and rolled into the grass. Massport says no one was hurt, and passengers are being bussed back to the terminal while they figure out what went wrong. The FAA has extended a ground stop until 2. No planes are taking off. All inbound flights are being held at their origin, and the runway is closed as well. This was JetBlue Flight 312 from Chicago O'Hare. In Boston, I'm Madison Rogers.
WABC News Time 512. New York City law enforcement preparing for a weekend of protests as anti-ICE demonstrators continue their thing across the country, but they're preparing for a big protest this weekend. Protests centered against President Trump's mass deportation efforts, but there's mixed opinion on his performance from people here in New York.
Trump's going overboard. I think he desperately wants to show his base that he is going to do what he said he's going to do, which is deport 11,000 people a day, which is an impossibility.
I don't agree with everything he does, but you come here and you're an immigrant and you break the rules, you get deported.
This comes as the No Kings protest set to take place in cities across the country falls on the same day President Trump set to hold that military march in D.C. and on his 79th birthday. 5:13 out to Long Island. A Long Island woman going to be arraigned this morning on child endangerment charges after she allegedly left her child all alone in a car to go shopping yesterday.
Suffolk County Police say the child was spotted by security guards at the Tanger Outlets in Deer Park late Thursday morning. Police arrived at the scene at about the same time as the mother, identified as 36-year-old Yesenia Panilla, returned to the car. She was arrested. Authorities say the 21-month-old boy was alone for about 20 minutes while the vehicle was running. The boy was unharmed and released to his father. I'm Larry Kofsky.
WABC News Time 514. Mayor Adams says New York City cops will continue to make progress when it comes to those so-called ghost vehicles.
The mayor says since the start of his administration, the NYPD has removed from New York City streets more than 100,000 so-called ghost vehicles. Not that kind of ghost. These are vehicles often untraceable, unlicensed, unregistered. They don't pay tolls, and cops say they often are used to commit crimes. Venkman, Egon, Ray, and Winston would be impressed. The vehicles seized won't be sold. They're headed straight for the crusher. James Flippin for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 5:15. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Justin Ellick is somewhere in the middle of the woods. I don't know why. So we get a treat. We get our own Sid Rosenberg doing sports.
Been a while, Noam. Last time I did sports updates, 10-10 wins from my den in Boca Raton going back to 2015.
Do you think you remember how to do it, or?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, I guess we'll find out right now.
Yeah, we will. And we'll start with the red-hot Mets, especially a red-hot Jeff McNeil.
Percentage in baseball. And McNeil gets one in the air deep down the right field line, headed toward the corner. It's out of here! Jeff McNeil with a 3-run homer. Just tucked it over the right field wall for his 7th home run of the year, and the Mets jump out to a 3-0 first-inning lead.
Gary Cohen on the call, compliments of SNY. Nimmo also homered for the Mets, his 13th of the season, and the Mets held on to beat the Nationals 4-3. Kodai Senga got his 7th win of the year. Mets improved now to 21 games over 500. They've got the best record in Major League Baseball. And they've got a 5.5 game lead over the Phillies atop the NL East. The Mets will start a series Citi Field against the Tampa Bay Rays later on tonight. Yankees win as well. Only needed one run yesterday. Paul Goldschmidt knocked it in. Held on to beat the Royals 1-0. 5 Yankee pitchers combined on a 5-hitter. Devin Williams, his 9th save of the year. The Yankees, they're now 17 games over 500. They've got a 4.5-game lead over Toronto, and they start a 3-game set tonight at Fenway Park against the third-place Boston Red Sox. Hockey last night. How about that win for the Edmonton Oilers? Oilers beat the Panthers 5-4 in overtime. Even up that series at 2 games apiece. But big hockey news on a local front. The Rangers have traded 34-year-old Chris Kreider to the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Kreider, 22 goals last season, 3rd all-time on the Ranger goal-scoring list behind Rod Gilbert and John Rattel. Was a first-round pick of the Rangers all the way back in 2009. On his way to Anaheim in exchange, the Rangers get Carey Terrence and a 3rd-round pick. And finally, NBA tonight, Game 4 of the finals from Indiana. The Pacers now lead the Oklahoma City Thunder 2-1 in that series. But despite that, the Thunder, a 6.5-point favorite later on tonight. No, not sports.
All right, Sydney, that was so good. I'm going to invite you back to come do it at 5:45 all over again. WABC News Time 519. A federal judge temporarily halting the Trump administration's deployment of military troops in Los Angeles. California Governor Gavin Newsom says he was hopeful the ruling would be followed as soon as possible.
I'm very hopeful this order puts that in perspective, and hopefully Donald Trump will immediately back down. The courts have ruled on the guard. They will be back under my command, and he'll be relieved.
The judge wrote in his ruling the federal government did not have the authority to nationalize California's National Guard. Now, the White House, they're definitely going to appeal the decision.
We discussed for a nanosecond Los Angeles, and he immediately zigged and zagged into 7 or 8 other topics, some extraordinarily familiar and some extraordinarily remarkable, considering the world we're living in.
Now, President Trump's doubling down on his claim that the LAPD welcomed the National Guard to help deal with the anti-ICE demonstrations. Chief Jim McDonald, though, went on CNN to say that we were lucky to have them, but it wasn't true that he had asked for them. But the president says that's not true.
Now, today they got him to change his tune. He said, "Oh, I think we could have handled it." It's so sad. He was so honest. I was using his quote all over the place that they got him to change, but he knows.
President Trump says L.A. would have burned to the ground if it wasn't for the National Guard and Marines.
Los Angeles would be right now burning to the ground, just like the houses burned to the ground. It's so sad what's going on in Los Angeles.
The head of Homeland Security says those immigration arrests will not slow down in Los Angeles. Flanked by law enforcement officers in Los Angeles, Secretary Kristi Noem says the operation is making L.A. streets safer.
They are setting an example for what is happening across the country in other cities and putting together a model and a blueprint for how we can continue to work to make every single community great again and safe again for our kids and for our grandkids far into the future.
Now, you had this wild moment during that press conference that you just heard there yesterday. Homeland Security Chief Kristi Noem says Senator Alex Padilla lunged towards the podium while she was speaking. The California Democrat was forcibly removed from this press event in L.A. yesterday while he was shouting questions.
We were conducting a press conference to update everyone on the enforcement actions that are ongoing to bring peace to the city of Los Angeles. And this man burst into the room, started lunging towards the podium, interrupting me and elevating his voice, and was stopped.
He was taken to the ground. He handcuffed.
Coming into a press conference like this is political theater. It's wrong, and it does a disservice to this country and the people who live here. So we sat down, had a conversation. We probably disagree on 90% of the topics, but we agreed to exchange phone numbers. We'll continue to talk and share information, and I think that's the way it should be in this country.
Now, Senator Padilla has a different story. He says he's been pressing Homeland Security for weeks about information on immigration raids, and that's why he said he showed up at this Kristi Noem event yesterday.
I was there peacefully. At one point, I had a question, and so I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground, and I was handcuffed. Several of my colleagues have been asking the Department of Homeland Security for more information and more answers on their increasingly extreme immigration enforcement actions. And we've gotten little to no information.
The senator says the whole thing's been an eye-opening experience.
If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks.
So what's interesting is there's been some businesses in Southern California, Northern California, where these deportations have begun, people taken off the streets, and they say they've noticed, actually, with some of these businesses that fewer customers are showing up.
When there's more activity going on in the neighborhood that may have our customers fearful, there's definitely been a decline in sales. We've probably seen a 20% drop over the past 2 weeks.
That's an owner of a Mexican grill in San Jose. 523. President Trump's DOJ-related spending cuts have been approved by the Republican-controlled House.
The White House used a rarely used procedure that recommends Congress take back spending it has already approved. The over $9 billion in reductions targets mostly foreign aid, but also funding for public broadcasting. The bill now heads to the Senate, where its fate remains unclear, but it cannot be filibustered. I'm Lisa Taylor.
President Trump putting the final nail in the coffin for California's electric vehicle mandate.
We officially rescue the U.S. auto industry from destruction by terminating the California electric vehicle mandate once and for all.
The president holding a ceremony at the White House yesterday, signing legislation that halts Governor Newsom, the California governor, from requiring California residents to buy electric cars. Newsom has vowed to fight the law in court, but faces an uphill battle now that it's law. The EV law mandated all vehicles sold in the state must be zero emission by 2035. While we're talking to the president, while we're down in Washington, President Trump wants the Fed to lower interest rates. Trump says the U.S. has too much short-term debt, and the nation would save billions if the interest rate was lower.
If he'd lower it by 2 points, we'd pay $600 billion a year. That's for years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever we make it. But we can't get this guy to do it.
The guy he's talking about is Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, who he can't really do a whole lot to get rid of him, but he wishes he wasn't there.
But I'm not going to fire him. I just want him to, we call him Too Late, right? Too Late is his nickname, like Too Tall Jones. He was too tall, T-O-O.
No, the president doesn't actually have the power to fire the Fed chair. 525. Autonomous vehicles could lead to fewer car accidents, but are not expected to lead to fewer dollars spent on insurance in the near future.
New research from Goldman Sachs says the types of risks insurers cover in the future may shift rather than disappear. In the meantime, drivers can expect modest growth in auto insurance premiums, partially because newer tech-heavy cars have pushed up repair expenses, leading to higher costs per claim. While lower premiums won't come soon, Goldman analysts predict insurance costs will decrease by more than 50% in the next 15 years. I'm at Mattinson.
526, a new pill that's taken once a week is showing promise for treatment of schizophrenia.
Researchers at Lindra Therapeutics, a developer spun out of MIT, have successfully carried out stage 3 clinical trials on the drug, which seems to be as effective as managing symptoms as medications that have to be taken every day. The drug has been in development for more than a decade. I'm Michael Kastner.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Friday, June 13th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Clouds this morning. Showers possible this afternoon. High 78. And then the weekend doesn't look that great, I got to be honest with you. Saturday, steady rain through a lot of the day, high 65. And then Sunday, no rain, but just clouds in the forecast, high 66. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. 66 cloudy in Nyack up in Rockland County. It is 69 and cloudy in West Windsor over in New Jersey. And it is 70 and and clear outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour over in Newark, New Jersey, where reports now say 4 detainees are missing from an ICE detention center in Newark after a riot in which detainees took control over parts of the facility. NewJersey.com's reporting as many as 50 ICE detainees inside the Delaney Hall staged this revolt last night, pushed down a wall of their dorm. Others reportedly made ropes out of bed sheets to get from the 3rd floor. At least 4 of these detainees unaccounted for. As of late last night into early this morning, there was a manhunt on for launch to find them. One of those detainees, his wife, she showed up at the detention center last night to find out if her husband was one of the people who had gone missing. And she was told, yes, he is. He's gone. They don't know where he is.
I am. I was crying all morning. I didn't know what was going on. I came here right away. I live not that far, so I came here to see what was going on, to see if he's safe, but no one would give me any response.
This is what we've been told. The report says detainees were angry about the timeliness and quality of their food. That's what apparently started this riot. Mayor Ross Baraka, who was arrested at Delaney Hall, you remember last month, says problems at the site stem from lack of oversight. Now, as more details come in on this story, of course, we'll pass them on to you. WABC News Time 538. So many people have asked me about this story over the last 48 hours. So a 20-year-old father has now been arraigned on charges of second-degree murder and manslaughter in the death of his 2-year-old son, who was found dead in the East River on Wednesday. During his arraignment yesterday, prosecutors allege that this little boy that the father allegedly threw into the river was alive when he threw him into the river back on May 10th. In fact, they have surveillance video that shows the father with the child alive just before. Police say they have video of the father, Arias Williams, after he threw the child into the river, walking without the child near a gas station. So police believe they found the body of Montrell Williams, this 2-year-old who had been missing for a month in the East River on Wednesday. Authorities still awaiting a positive identification from the medical examiner, but they say they're almost 100% sure that this is the child. The father appeared in Bronx Family Court to answer a warrant earlier this week. No doubt he'll soon be charged with the murder of his 2-year-old son. 5:39. NYPD continues to search for a masked man who was seen fleeing the scene after torching 11 police vehicles Thursday morning in a parking lot in Bushwick, Brooklyn. When officers went to investigate, they found undetonated explosive devices similar to M80s on 3 other cars around the charred vehicles. The vehicles caught fire in the police parking lot. This was DeKalb Avenue, just near Central Avenue, about 2 blocks from the 83rd precinct. The creep who caused all this destruction came in, they think, about 1:30 in the morning. Mayor Adams and NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, they went to inspect the fire damage yesterday afternoon.
We are going to use every authority and resource we have to find you and bring you to justice.
Now, police say the explosive devices that were used were made from unignited fire starter balls and haystack bundles. This is, by the way, stuff that you can just buy on places like Amazon. So police say that the suspect, who was wearing all black and a mask, who was seen on camera, he hopped a fence to get into the lot. He ran away after an officer caught him in the act. So they say just a matter of time until they capture him, but they kind of know who he is.
We have reasons to believe that the person who participated in this act is connected to some of the protests that's taking place in Los Angeles and throughout the entire country.
Yeah, so the incident, you might guess, has left some neighbors shaken because of the fire at 1:30 in the morning. So far, though, they have not caught up with this jerk. 5:41. Pretty contentious debate last night. 7 of the 11 candidates running for mayor here in New York City did not agree on a whole lot. Was there any knockout punches? Did we change people's minds? I couldn't tell you. I'd have to talk to the voters. President Trump, no surprise, was a big topic at the debate last night. Democrats telling the voters what they would do to stop the president. Here was Andrew Cuomo last night.
He sent troops into cities all across this country, but he never sent them into New York when I was there, and he never will when I am mayor. Donald Trump only picks fights that he can win. He cannot win a fight with me.
Now, the polls have showed that the race is close between Cuomo and Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist, that he's closing in. So the gloves were off when it came to the two of them, and it made for some interesting moments. Cuomo wanted to hammer home that he had way more experience than Mamdani.
He's never dealt with the city council. He's never dealt with the Congress. He's never dealt with the state legislature. He's never negotiated with the union. He's never built anything.
Now, Mamdani fired right back.
I have never had to resign in disgrace. I have never cut Medicaid. I have never stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from the MTA. I have never hounded the 13 women who credibly accused me of sexual harassment. I have never sued for their gynecological records, and I have never done those things because I am not you, Mr. Cuomo. And furthermore, the name is Mamdani, Mamdani. You should learn how to say it.
Yeah, there were all kinds of topics last night. Of course, with everything going on in Israel and Iran, that was a topic last night. Here was both Mamdani and Cuomo.
I'm not Mr. Mamdani. I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm not divisive. I didn't say I would boycott Israel. We should be selling unity, not the division that this man is spreading.
The reason he doesn't have a message for Muslim New Yorkers is because he has nothing to say to us.
Now, if elected, Cuomo would actually be the oldest mayor, 67 years old. Mamdani would be the youngest ever at 34. The campaign has effectively turned into this two-way race, but there were 7 candidates in all on stage, and so they were going after Cuomo, too. Here's Brad Landon.
You've never taken responsibility for one single thing you've done wrong in your entire life. Not one single thing. You should try it sometime.
Democratic Socialist Mamdani, meanwhile, was on the defense a good portion of the night as well, as people said that he would defund the police, but he said no, he wouldn't defund the police.
You've never taken responsibility.
Okay, but there was one point where he does say that. Let's see. Well, we don't have that bite, but there were some issues where all the candidates agreed. No one thinks closing Rikers Island by 2027 would be possible. All of them support an expansion on red light cameras and street vendors. So there were couple of things they agreed on. Otherwise, it was a kind of a slugfest last night. The polls leading up, early voting begins this weekend. The polls leading up to the primary day show this race has gotten closer, but most of them show Cuomo with still a pretty wide lead over Mamdani. All right, 5:45. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Justin Ellick is somewhere in the woods, so we get a treat today. Our very own Sydney Ferris Rosenberg. Good morning, Sydney.
Well, thank you, Noam. Arthur Layton. Here I am doing sports again. Oh, my God. It's like a Yogi Berra flashback. The Mets, Noam, remain red hot, and they hit the Nats early, right in the face in the first.
Percentage in baseball. And McNeil gets one in the air deep down the right field line, headed toward the corner. It's out of here! Jeff McNeil with a 3-run homer. Just tucked it over the right field wall for his 7th home run of the year, and the Mets jump out to a 3-0 first inning lead.
Gary Cohen on the call. Compliments of SNY. Mets hold on, beat the Nationals 4-3 your final score. Mets right now at 45-24. That's the best record in Major League Baseball. They swept the Nats. They now have a 5.5 game lead over the Phillies atop the NL East, and they get set to host the Tampa Bay Rays for a 3-game set out in Queens. Yankees know them. They win too. They swept the Royals, beat the Royals 1-0. 5 pitchers combined to pitch a 5-hitter. Devin Williams, his 9th save of the year. Paul Goldschmidt knocked in the only run. Yankees now 17 games over 500. They've got a 4.5 game lead over Toronto atop the AL East, and they get set to go to Boston for a 3-game set against the Red Sox, which starts at Fenway Park later on tonight. Drama in Florida. Here come the Edmonton Oilers.
Clock calls it. Cross-eyed pass. Right side, a swing to net. Score! Leon Draisaitl in overtime. The Edmonton Oilers tie the series 2 games apiece.
Kenny Albert on the call. The Oilers beat the Panthers 5-4 in overtime. That series is now 2 games apiece. Game 5 coming up from Edmonton tomorrow. Local hockey news. How about this? It's a huge story. The Rangers have traded their 3rd all-time leading goal scorer Chris Kreider off a 22-goal season, but only behind Rod Gilbert and Jean Rattel for the most goals in Ranger history. He gets traded to the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. Yesterday, the Rangers, in return, get Carey Terrence and a third-round draft choice. And finally, NBA Finals later on tonight from Indiana. The Pacers lead that series 2-1, but the Road Thunder 6.5-point favorites. There's your sports dome.
WABC News Time 5:49. Let's go out to Long Island. A Green Lawn, Long Island woman arrested yesterday for leaving her 21-month-old child unattended in a vehicle at the outlets in Deer Park. So a security guard apparently notified police that this child was left in a Nissan. This was about 11:15 yesterday morning. The mother of the child apparently went shopping. She came back 20 minutes later. By the way, she also left the car running. So not only did she leave her 21-month-old in the car, but the engine was running. I guess she thought, well, the kid needs air conditioning, but somebody could have driven off.
You just would never leave them. I mean, that's a law. Like, it's just not something you do. It's not easy to be a parent.
No.
But you have to make the tough calls.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that people are still doing this. Child Protective Services notified the boy, thankfully unharmed, released to his father. The mom, she's been charged with endangering the welfare of a child. Out to New Jersey, a senior prank led to South River High School closing for the day yesterday. The pranksters apparently made a mess. They didn't destroy anything, but it was a big enough mess that things could not be restored in time to allow for a normal school day yesterday. So here's the mayor of South River.
Nothing was broken. Nothing was stolen. But obviously, tables were moved, desks were moved out of classrooms, equipment was thrown out onto the gymnasium, toilet paper thrown all over the place.
Every year, this time of year, we get one of these school prank stories. This one's not even that interesting, but they will reopen this morning as the investigation continues into who was behind it all.
Listen, we were all kids at one time.
Yeah.
I mean, we have all done our share of mischief. This kind of went too far. I don't know how the Board of Education is going to handle it, but at this point, we're still investigating.
A Canarsie, Brooklyn family asking for your help finding a 15-year-old boy who's been missing for about 3 weeks now. Oljami was last seen by his mom and sister leaving his home in Canarsie. He was heading to the train to get to Grand Army Plaza, the library at Grand Army Plaza, and he hasn't been seen since.
He came back home from school. It was Wednesday, May 21st, and he came to eat lunch, and then he headed out. He told me that he was going to the library, and that's it.
Now, Ojami, described by his family as being kind of a quiet, reserved kid who often stays to himself.
He's quiet, he's reserved, he minds his business, he doesn't cause any trouble.
I'm begging, I want to see my son alive.
Yeah, just horrible. Police asking anyone with any information on him to give them a call. We have a picture up of him up at WABCRadio.com. The judge in Harvey Weinstein's New York sex crimes retrial declaring a mistrial yesterday on one charge. Jurors were still deliberating, saying the panel could not come to an agreement on whether the former media mogul committed third-degree rape in connection with the case of Jessica Mann. The developments came on what was the sixth day of deliberations. This jury could not get along. We're going to hear more, by the way, coming up at 9:30 this morning from the lawyer behind who was representing Harvey Weinstein, Arthur Aidala. But the jury issued a split verdict on Wednesday, finding Weinstein guilty of first-degree criminal sexual act in regard to that victim, Miriam Haley, and not guilty of criminal sex act in connection to another woman's allegations. They couldn't agree on Mann's counts, so that's why they had this mistrial yesterday. Here is Arthur Aidala outside the courtroom.
This is a case about correcting commonly...
No, okay, that's not him. But anyway, he would go on to say that there were 20 people who accused Harvey Weinstein of sex acts, only one conviction out of 20. But then you had the DA Alvin Bragg saying that he thought this was an okay outcome for them.
This is a case about correcting commonly held misperceptions about rape. Rape can and does happen between acquaintances and between romantic partners.
All right, again, 9:30 this morning, you can hear Arthur hear his whole side of the story. He'll be here with Sid. A Brooklyn teacher is accused of crossing the line not once, but several times, allegedly attacking and harassing 3 students in separate incidents at PS 202. The students, their parents speaking out. They've hired an attorney. They say they're taking legal action. Here's one of the kids talking about what happened to him.
She grabbed my wrist really hard. Then when we were walking downstairs, then she grabbed my neck from right here and was holding it very hard. I was telling her that it hurts, and she said, "You should have listened to my rules. I told you there would be consequences."
What were you thinking in your head?
I felt scared.
The student's one of 3 who have accused the same teacher of harassment and physical abuse. All of the incidents happened in May. One happened back in November. Ann Peters, that's one of the moms, she says her 7-year-old son was victimized by the same teacher as well. But it was the actions of another teacher that sent her son to the nurse and then to the hospital with injuries to his hand.
Hearing my son and seeing my son upset, that makes me upset. I'm not comfortable with my children in that building.
This is more of a systemic issue, DOE-wide. So I want every parent who's watching this right now to ask themselves, is my child safe at a DOE school?
Now, we asked the DOE for some comment, but they don't comment on pending litigation. 5:55. A Brooklyn family claims a neighbor took control of their elderly aunt's estate and belongings after she died without any consent. This is a crazy story. So, Gretel Taylor, 78 years old, she was living in Brooklyn by herself. Her entire family was back in Barbados, and they got a call that she wasn't doing well, and it was from her next-door neighbor. And her next-door neighbor seemed to be somebody who was very caring and would take care of the aunt. So here's the family back in Barbados.
I spoke with her a lot. It's got a little bit quieter, but we weren't 100% sure. Quite grateful that the neighbor had, in fact, responded to us via my aunt's phone to let us know what had happened. So we thought, okay, we're keeping contact with her.
So they went and visited their aunt, and she seemed to be okay. They went back to Barbados, but they had not heard from her in months. And so they asked the NYPD to do a wellness check on this 78-year-old. And when they did, they found out that she had died back months ago, and that the neighbor had had her cremated. And so, I mean, you can imagine their minds just boggled by all this.
I didn't hear from my aunt, and I knew again it was unusual. And then Christmas came, and I thought, it's really, really strange. Something's not right.
Yes, so apparently she had been dead the entire time. This part of the story won't be shocking to you at all. Is that next-door neighbor had gotten the will changed, and she got everything, the house in Brooklyn and a house in Barbados. So now the family is trying to get that will annulled and changed. They say that this woman coerced their aunt into signing everything. Not clear if they'll be able to get that to happen.
We want her to go to prison, and then we would like her to go to hell, and the hell in hell where even the devil doesn't want her.
Yeah, okay, they're pretty upset, as you can see. 5:57, traffic, transit on the 7s. Here's Joe Nolan.
That might be a little understatement there.
Yeah.
They were a little upset.
Wait, it's almost worth playing again. Hold on a second.
We want her to go to prison, and then we would like her to go to hell, and the hell in hell where even the devil doesn't want her.
Wow, I mean, that's really bad. Deep down in hell. Yeah,
that's deep hatred right there. That's bad.
I mean, she probably deserves to go there, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah. Not disagreeing with her, but gee.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the News Hour with Noam Laden. You can hear the News Hour with Noam Laden weekday mornings at 5 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
When it comes to Father's Day, some things never change. Dads want steak. And there's still time to deliver uncompromising quality and flavor with delicious gifts from Omaha Steaks. Plus, get an extra $35 off with code THANKSDAD when you shop omahasteaks.com today. We know being your dad means he already has everything he could want. But just picture the look on his face when he sees those extra-aged USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy air-chilled chicken, beefy burgers, and more. With carefully curated gift packages from America's original butcher, it's never been easier to show everyone why you're Dad's favorite. And every bite is 100% guaranteed to bring a thrill to the King of the Grill. Hurry, there's still time to give Dad something incredible for Father's Day. Shop now at omahasteaks.com and get an extra $35 off with code THANKSDAD. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details.